Good morning. I'm Bob Zykowitz, your host this morning. Here we are, March 15th. Half the month is gone already. It gives me pleasure to introduce our guests this morning, Lily Wainless, Gary Jose, and they are both from Garden Ridge, and we're going to talk about preventing falls. And what a better subject than what we have outside. Good morning.
Good morning, Bob.
Good
morning. Good morning, Bob.
The subject of preventing falls is very important. You mentioned something before the show. It's not limited to elderly people.
Yep.
So let's pick it up from there. Lily?
True. Falling is not a factor of aging. Just because someone is in older years doesn't mean they have to fall, but accidents do happen. It happens in all ages. So what Gary and I would like to discuss are some preventive measures, some things that we all can be aware of, especially we're going to focus more on outdoor fall prevention.
Let's chat about that.
Okay.
If I go outside, what would the two of you recommend that I do to prevent myself from going down?
Well, first of all, know what your limitations are.
Yeah.
Know how far you can walk. If you're, know pretty much what you can do. That would be the first thing. Don't set off for a very long walk knowing that you can only walk maybe half the distance.
Yeah, and in regards to falling is not part of aging, of course, like Lily said, know your limitation. Of course, when someone gets older, there's physiological changes, but knowing that, for example, you have that your endurance can only gauge up until this distance, you need to make sure that there are benches around that area that you have to have a backup plan. In addition to that, the use of assistive devices too. All right, I know some residents here use multiple devices. They sometimes use a cane and a walker. We wanted to let them know that, of course, assistive devices such as a walker offers more support than using a single assistive device like a cane. So cane expends more energy than when you use a walker. So if you think that you're walking for a long distance, you can use a more support, like the walker or later. If you're planning to use the cane, just make sure that you can pace your activities. There are chairs around that you can sit and, just rest.
Well, Gary and Lily, either one, if I'm going outside, is there any special shoe that I should wear because of the ice or the whatever, the snow?
Well, if you're just going out for a walk, any shoe, if you wear sneakers, if that's your shoe of choice, that's fine. For snow and ice, obviously, more specific shoes to the weather, so something that has better tread, a specific snowshoe would be recommended. And ice, if you can at all avoid walking outside when it's icy, that would be the preference, because there's black ice, there's ice that you just don't see, and as we get older, our depth perception becomes a little more challenged, so that you might not see that there's ice going down a ramp. So if you can avoid the ice, that would be our number one recommendation.
And we wanted to make it clear too that we're not saying that you limit yourself. It's just that knowing yourself, know your limitation. You don't want to be overconfident about doing things, but at the same time, you don't want to underestimate what you're capable of. But all in all, you just want to be as independent and as safe as possible.
I know the basic premise would be in inclement weather, please stay in.
Correct.
That's the first thing we should think of. I'm just thinking of some kind of a dire circumstance where the person would have to get outside.
Right, and here at Green Spring, they take very good care of cleaning the walkways and the streets.
That.
So
yesterday morning.
So that, if you have an emergency doctor's appointment that you have to go to, let's say, then our recommendation would be to wear the most appropriate, the most non-skid shoes that you have. If you're walking outside in inclement weather, to use the most supportive assistive device that you have. So as opposed to just a cane, go ahead and use that walker because it'll give you a little bit more support. So if you have to, those are the recommendations that we would make. But
And if I may add, actually,
Yeah.
well, if you see like any areas there that hasn't been like cleared up yet, like there still are some ice, like, you know, please do notify like at least like the front desk so they can like call someone to like be able to like clear it, because like other residents may be walking outside too, and you don't want any issues with that.
So I see that you have a little update list.
our little cheat sheet.
Would you want to pass on some updates
Well,
for us?
We would. One thing that we want to remind all residents who use rollators is that sometimes it becomes just an automatic extension of oneself, and people forget to do what's the most safe, which means to lock that rollator before you get up or as you're about to sit.
That is an excellent
And also, the rollator, people tend to use it because as they're walking, if they get tired, they can sit on the seat of the rollator. And we see many people just sitting
Yeah.
in the middle of the hall. You know, they're tired, they're going to sit. But if they push the rollator against a wall where there's more support, the likelihood of it rolling and you falling is far less.
Yeah, the first choice is still find a chair or a bench to
Correct.
sit on, because the rollator, even though the brakes are working, still have wheels as legs, all right?
You took the words out of my mouth, because to me, there are two types of rollators, one without a seat. The other one with the two wheels on the front and the seat,
Right.
it's a little storage compartment.
Yeah.
But that's the one that you would recommend people would pursue and buy if they had to have a rollator so that they could rest.
Well, I think most of the rollators come with a method of sitting on it. But what we're saying is, if you need to sit, if there's no other chair available that's more sturdy, to push the rollator against a wall prior to sitting so that it's more stable.
Okay. How about the rolling electric vehicles?
Correct. As with those, what we usually say with that is that it's good to use that, especially for like longer distances, but we don't want like residents to be too dependent on them.
Yeah.
Same as what I said earlier, know your limitations.
Right.
Don't underestimate yourself. If you're just like walking for a short distance or going somewhere close by that you know that you have that capability of reaching it, then don't rely on the power chair. Just like walk using your assistive device. If it's like a longer distance, then you're fine using the power chair. But you don't want to like start being too dependent on the power chair that your endurance, your stamina will, you know, get less through time. All right, you still want it to be as active as possible.
Let's talk about Garden Ridge. Do we have any patients over there at the present time that are there because of a result of a fall?
We absolutely
Yes.
We
do.
do. Are these injuries somewhat serious?
Well, for them to be in Garden Ridge,
it is
you would, yes. I personally have 2 people that have fallen
Really?
with broken hips as a result, fractured hips.
Analyzing their injuries, could you as PT individuals have told them what not to do?
Okay.
Go ahead,
Yes,
please.
yes, and like I said, yeah, fall should always, for me, in my opinion, should be taken seriously. No matter how mild, such as like just a bruise, or as severe, such as a break on somewhere, fall still is a fall. What you want is to try to limit or try to prevent it, if I may. Knowing the reason why you fell, try to avoid it again. It's because sometimes, no matter how strong or how good your balance is, if you're careless, you know, if you don't have like good safety awareness, you can still fall. Even like younger people such as us can still fall if we're not careful. So knowing like factors that caused your fall can like help you like in the future to avoid them. Okay. Yep.
Are there any other things that I should look for?
Well, okay, since we kind of went over outdoor
Yeah.
Walking, if we have a few minutes
We
to
haven't
just...
talked about inside.
Right, we can quickly just address a little bit on the inside, especially in residence apartments. If you do have an assistive device, a walker, a rollator, we highly recommend not having a lot of throw rugs, because your wheels or your can get caught in the throw rugs, and that becomes a source of losing one's balance and potentially falling. Decluttering
Yeah.
your apartment. Try to have nice, clean paths.
Yeah, make sure the pathway are very accessible to connecting the rooms. Yeah.
For the benefit of a new resident, will Green Spring install railings to help a person get from, say, the living room to the bedroom in the hallway?
I don't know. I know they install equipment in the bathroom.
Yeah.
If you need, grab bars, additional grab bars. I'm not aware of
I
that.
would expect that they would. So we'll have to follow up.
Yeah.
Are there any last-minute items that you want to pass on before I
No,
bid
just
you so long?
just be safe. Make sure that you don't take things for granted. You look, you examine, and you're just careful when you're walking.
Well, I
Yes.
think your be safe was good advice.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank both of you, Gary and Lily, for
Our
being
pleasure,
on this
Bob.
morning.
Thanks for having us
Especially
here.
in this kind of bad weather that we're having.
Yeah, surprising.
Let's not have any falls.
I-
So I do thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you
Thank you,
for
too.
having us.
And now we had a little video roll in, and this was on the Brothers Flanagan